Hi, Adam. Welcome. Great to see you. I've known Adam for I'm reckoning he must be nudging 20 years now. Is that probably about right? Yeah,
All right, yeah, yeah.
2003? Yeah, just under 20 years. I know neither of us look look young, look old enough to have known each other that length of time. But Adam was used to live at college in the same college that I lived at. When we studied to be vicars. Adam's still a vicar, even though I've taken a bit of a break. And Adam, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are and what you do and all that sort of stuff?
I took an unusual journey. I'm Irish. You probably guessed by the accent by this stage, but I was in Wales at the time and then went forward for ministry to college in England. And we had a Scottish tutor as well, so I had the full gambit in there.
English, Irish, and Scottish, all there. Yeah.
Yeah.
When rugby happened, I was very much on my own as the only Englishman actually living on site.
And then I went back to Wales for 4 years, and I've been back to Ireland now since 2009. And I'm in a parish in the northwest of Ireland, in Donegal, which is the most northerly county in the south of Ireland.
It's somewhat confusing between north and the south.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people in the south think Donegal is in the north, and everybody in Donegal thinks Donegal is somewhere else. But we're the county right on the western side of Ireland, next door to Northern Ireland. Often forgotten about by either bit of Ireland, but a lovely part of the world, but we can't see very much of it at the moment.
Well, we're in very strange times at the moment. But actually, one of the things that this strange times is meaning is actually we're doing things like this. We're talking to people and learning from each other, which I think is really exciting. Actually, in one sense, COVID has made the world get that little bit smaller, really. Adam, so tell us a little bit about what it's like trying to do the kingdom stuff in a rural part of Ireland, when also the majority of the people you're ministering amongst, I guess there's a sort of Catholic majority, isn't there, as well, being a Protestant in a Catholic
area. Well, we're in an unusual part. We're in
dynamics of a very different type of ministry.
You might remember Ian Pacey said Ulster says no. Well, Northern Ireland only contains 6 out of 9 counties of Ulster. The other 3 are in the Republic, one of which is in Donegal. So we're in Northern Ireland, and traditionally we have a higher Protestant population up here, anywhere between 15 to 30 or more percent. But we're still not majority. When COVID hit, the Irish government has been extremely cautious and very nervous about COVID, so has locked us down far more than the UK, and the churches have been locked down for all but about 4 months. So very early on, I decided we had to do something about this. So the young lad who went with me on a mission trip to Tanzania, he came and we started off on an iPhone outside the front of the rectory here on Mothering Sunday last year. And we've since progressed to using phones and other mics in one of our other 3 churches. And now we've moved to the church next to me. And we feel a bit like RTE, which is our version of your BBC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we're putting the words in, and we have the songs from another vicar friend of mine. He does them, records them, and sends them across. And so on the one hand, it's been a huge challenge because I did have a nickname as a techno rector, but I didn't have all the technology. But
that sounds more like the type of music you're into, and I can't really imagine you at a rave with your white gloves doing your.
Well, maybe not. But we learned a lot, and the great thing about it is I'm a very visual, conceptual person. Our church is quite traditional, so we've had a prayer book and so on. But this has allowed me to use pictures and images and get videos off the internet that I can use to explain and show other concepts about God and about Bible and about Jesus that I couldn't have done without it. On a really good Sunday between our 3 churches, we might get 75, 80. We're now getting about that number by 1 o'clock. Our service goes out at midday. And by midweek, we've got anywhere between 200 and 300 people who have looked in on our service. We have a lot of Roman Catholic people who look in, who probably, because of historical reasons, wouldn't necessarily come into the building. We've had people connecting in from the UK, Canada, Australia, the US, and as random places as Malaysia. And we've had one person who tuned in from Saudi Arabia, would you believe?
Oh, wow.
So it's been a huge learning curve. On one hand, a lot of people haven't been able to reach us because we have a lot of older people. But what we've done for the older people is the same service we make as a video, we're able to record an audio of it. And through a company in Eastbourne, next to Andy.
Well, it's a little bit further along the coast, but I'm very connected with Eastbourne. So
yeah, we are able to put that service up on a telephone line, and the older people are able to ring in and listen in.
So it's interesting, actually, because actually one of the things that can happen with things like COVID is that some churches have gone, oh no, and gone into this sort of panic mode almost. But actually what you've done, and other places have done, is they've actually seen this as an opportunity. And now actually you're reaching more people, you're being able to share stuff differently and enable people to experience different things in worship, which is exciting too. And and you're even impacting Eastbourne, which is Eastbourne and the United Arab Emirates. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And so as a because interestingly as well, one thing I was going to ask you about in pre-COVID, it's a really interesting parish to be, is to how to minister locally in such a different area. And this has changed that dynamic. So how did you first start when you first became rector?
So when I moved to this part, we have rectors, not vicars in Ireland, just a different time. Really,
we have some rectors in the UK. It's it's a bit interchangeable, rectors and vicars and all that stuff.
The guy before me was a real go-ahead guy, but he had a few challenges, and there's still many challenges in the parish. But I had a very good bishop as well. And the year I arrived in October, and then in December, we started what's called a year of opportunity, which is really a year of mission. And the bishop wanted each parish to have a team. So I had a team of people, which was called the ministry team, which I've renamed and repurposed as a mission and ministry team. And so we did all sorts of things like Alpha and prayer walks and other things. We kept going, and that was about 4 years ago now. So we've done a prayer course. We do things that help organize things for the children at Christmas and Easter. So we try and do stuff that is more younger friendly, more engaging, because the traditional Church of Ireland was very much out for a prayer book. You all brought your prayer book to church, you followed the prayer book from page 1 to 10, you sang your hymns, and you went home again. And that's all very nice, but especially when you reach things like COVID, unless the prayer book is internal, as in you've taken the prayers to heart and you realize who God is, it's not very helpful other than being a nice little book to look at. So what I've tried to do is help people to go a bit deeper. Some have, some haven't. But I feel I wouldn't be doing what I'm supposed to be doing if I didn't try.
Yeah, my dad actually took over a church in Poole in Dorset that was a prayer book stronghold. Actually, they were very into the prayer book when they've moved on from that. But the problem is people seem to have a love of the prayer book. They seem to have a love of the King James Bible. They have a love of tradition. But the question is actually, do you actually have a love of Jesus? Actually, you can have, it's, almost it's that sort of thing of thing. And sometimes people do. They do coexist sometimes. But actually, it's about people coming to a real and personal faith in Jesus, actually, and saying, actually, this stuff is useful, and if it blesses you, great. But actually, ultimately, it's about Jesus, isn't it? And that living faith rather than just.
I think the prayer book is safer because it doesn't ask anything of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't ask you to believe in itself by its nature, because it was never designed that way. And it doesn't stretch you as much, perhaps, as obviously a personal faith would do.
Yeah, it's something you just go and say the words, and it feels comforting and it's familiar, and it's those things. But actually, the irony was that the prayer book was originally written as a really sort of controversial, powerful sort of book that got burned, and now it's become this sort of text that's quoted like Shakespeare. It's very, very odd. I used to have to do a prayer book service in my curacy church, and I always used to I always used to find it was always a bit of a challenge to get your mouth around some of the phrases. Like, was it full, perfect, and sufficient sacrifice, oblation, and satisfaction for the sins of the whole world? And by the end of that sentence, I was almost out of breath. But so you're very much got the idea of being a local minister. but then you're also involved in a national church in Ireland as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about your local and your national?
Well, I mean, at local level, I'm a chaplain to the local convalescent hospital, which has been under threat of closure by the Irish government. They want to put them all into mega big hospitals, which happened in your country and didn't work, and it's not going to work in this country either.
Yeah.
So I was on a campaign with the local Catholic curate who was heading it up. But we went on marches and we went to visit the Dáil, which is our House of Commons, to lobby our TDs, equivalent of MPs. But on a national front, I have been since my previous parish and this parish on the Church of Ireland Council Commission. And that encourages the Church of Ireland.
You've been on it though, haven't you, Adam? You've been.
Well, I'm getting there. Mission local and global. And for the last 9 years, I've been its chairperson. So because I wanted to get a better handle on global mission, I went on a short week trip to Ethiopia and saw the self-help groups. I went and represented the Church of Ireland and the World Council of Churches Mission and Evangelism Conference in Tanzania. And then I went to the Church of England conference on mission and was asked to explain to them the simple topic of Brexit and the Irish perspective. But we are doing our best to put mission up the agenda, which it has majorly. We adopted, even though we didn't know was already there, for us to adopt the 5 marks of mission, which are teach, tell, transform, treasure, and one more. There's 5 of them anyway. One is proclamation, one is teaching, one is justice, one is poverty, and one is creation. And we do that because it's holistic. It remembers the care for everybody in the world that goes with mission, but you don't just care for the world and people and forget God either.
Kingdom, isn't it? It's caring about the things that God cares about. Yeah.
And so I'll be standing down from that soon, which is a shame, but there is a rule in the Church of Ireland that you can only serve for 9 years. So I've got to stand down soon. But that's been great. I've been on that group with people from the mission agencies that work through and from Ireland. All the dioceses, there are 12 in Ireland. The Church of Ireland College, the youth department, the Bishop's Appeal, which isn't appeal from bishops to get more money. It's the Church of Ireland way of raising money for things. Church of Ireland Aid, should be called, but for some reason they can't change the name.
Names are interchangeable sometimes, aren't they? So what would you say, from having seen some different countries and been part of the big picture of talking about mission on big church agenda? What would you say to us as just ordinary Christians who say, actually, I just want to do what I can to see God's kingdom come here on earth as it is in heaven, here in Bournemouth as it is in heaven, here in Donegal as it is in heaven, here in Eastbourne?
I think if you get a chance to go abroad, and especially go abroad and see the church abroad, it's a huge eye-opener. We don't realize, to use an Irish expression, we're born. We have so many resources and finances, and even if we're a poor church, we have so much more than most African churches have, and yet what they do is amazing. Day-to-day and personal faith is amazing, and it's not oh, look at us, aren't we great? I think we can learn a huge amount from the African churches and African people, and it helps us to put our things into perspective. I mean, I'm reminded of the kid's song, "Got the Whole World in His Hands." Our world is often so focused on our little bit, be it Poole or be it Donegal, we can't see beyond that. And when we step outside that and then come back into our own world, it puts things into a bit more perspective, and we might get a little glimpse of how God sees things.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. And so, if you were talking to yourself now, before you started the whole craziness of vicardom and Irish rectordom and council of missions and all that sort of stuff, what would you be something you'd say to yourself starting out, if you were able to have a conversation with your younger self?
I suppose it's picking up on what a friend of mine, Jan Horseman, said when I was looking at colleges. Take the opportunities that God gives you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times the day-to-day stuff can be tough. It can even be boring towards challenging. But when God comes along with an opportunity, it's often very exciting, encouraging, and he knows you better than you know yourself. So he'll get you to do something, and you discover something about yourself and help others in the process that you never even considered in the first place.
Yeah, often often it's that God has a different perspective on us and what He can do through us than we think. Really, I like that. Yeah, and as you've journeyed along, have there been any like Bible verses or scriptures that have really helped shape and fashion your thinking?
Well, my spiritual director, who I haven't been in touch with for a while, had Jeremiah 29. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and give you hope. I still hang on to that because there are times when that seems more real, and there are times when that seems less real. But God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and that means that He's still just as dependable. We go up and down like yo-yos. Thankfully, He doesn't.
Yeah. No, and I was going to say, and both of us, I think, probably have had times. Adam and I have been part of a prayer triplet with this other guy, Simon, who I think is going to appear up on this channel fairly soon, or if not, he's already appeared, depending when this gets broadcast. I've been part of a prayer triplet, and I think it's probably fair to say that all of us have had times where we've been both quite doing well, and also times when it's been really quite hard and it's been quite tough. And actually, I think that is the reality of following Jesus. Sometimes, you know, what's it says in Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you're with me. So there's been some times when it feels like I'm on a mountaintop, and other times it feels like it's really hard. And I think that is sometimes the reality.
I was reading a Pete Gregg book, and there's a few quotes in it, but one of them, he quotes a Russian proverb. You're on a boat and there's a storm, you're trying to get to the shore. Pray, but keep rowing.
That's not a bad adage, because so often we pray and we give up, or we pray and we sort of just expect it all to be dropped in our lap. But actually, sometimes it is pray and just keep walking, pray and just keep rowing. But yeah, I think that's a lot of wisdom in that. Thank you, Adam. And have you got anything else you'd like to say as like I don't know, throw in like a really controversial phrase at the end or something?
Well, I'll try just throw in the Irish. It's normally the Irish for hello, but I'll use it for a greeting. The Irish for hello is Dia Gwit, which is literally translated, and God be with you.
That's brilliant, and that's a great word to end with. So thank you, bless you.
Welcome.
I guess if we stop.